All right, welcome back. This section, and I want to hold my breath on this a little bit because I don't want to say it's the most important, but let's dive into internet connection. If you don't have any sort of internet connection or cellular connection, there's no virtual event. So pretty imperative to put some emphasis in this to understand some of the terminology and understand why this is important and what we need to look for to understand what type of output of an event or a live stream that we can do. The first terminology I want to talk to you about is pixilation. Pixilation is how clear the video can be during an event. Very typical and very standard for streaming platforms. Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, Hangout are typically outputting 720 pixelations. What you're watching right now is 1080p pixelations. And most of these platforms can provide that for you, but you do have to pay extra to be able to do that. But there's no sense in even wanting to output a 1080p pixelation if you don't have the proper equipment or the proper machine, aka computer, to be able to output that. Because what you're going to be able to find is if you're trying to output too big of a picture and your machine's not able to handle that processing power, you're going to start glitching out and phasing out. And that's not an enjoyable experience for anybody, because now you're putting yourself in a position where your audience has to put the words in your mouth for you, or try to piece together the message that you're going to say, all because you didn't go through the virtual event checklist of the internet. So understanding your internet connection. Up here in GB3 Studios, everything is hardwired. No matter what. Whether it's your camera, it's your audio, it's your internet, it's your lighting, everything in this studio is hardwired. I always try to stay away from wireless connection or wireless anything when going into my virtual events, because wireless just brings a whole new dynamic and a whole new opportunity for mistakes and errors to happen. So having hardwired connection, everything is going to give you a position where you're comfortable and you're not relying on a Bluetooth connection. One of my clients would always use their AirPods, and I used to use my AirPods. We saw this at the very beginning of the seminar. Going into a big meeting, went through the checklist, the headphones were working. Went into the meeting, 5 minutes later, the headphones were not working. The Bluetooth connection wasn't working, for whatever reason. So now you're in an awkward situation where you're having to backpedal and having to troubleshoot during the meeting when you're wasting your audience's time. So try to keep everything hardwired. Keep your internet connection to your computer hardwired at most points. Listen, when we send you downstairs, we're going to talk about, because downstairs I was not in a position to be able to have hardwired connection. I had to rely on wireless connection. And that's not a bad thing. You can still produce and perform a high caliber event without having a hardwired connection, but there are some strategies that you need to implement, and there's some methodologies that you need to follow, and we'll go dive into that more when we're at the kitchen table. So ensure that your hardwired internet connection. Limit your devices that's on the wireless network. Your cell phone, is your iPad, is any device that you're not using when you go into that virtual meeting, are they using bandwidth on the wireless internet? Because the more devices you have on your wireless internet, the more strain you're putting on your connection. Every time I go into a virtual meeting, I'm turning my wireless phone off, taking it off the wireless internet. I'm taking my iPad off the wireless internet. I'm doing everything that I need to do to ensure that when I'm using the wireless internet, it's connected to my laptop and my laptop only, and it's not trying to communicate with any other device in the vicinity. So limit your devices that you have on your wireless connection when you're going into these meetings. I had one of my clients actually do a live stream with their cellular data. That in itself blew my mind, because that is something I would never even try to attempt, let alone go into a virtual meeting, but it worked out great for them. They understood that they couldn't produce a 1080p picture when going onto a cellular data, so they brought the pixelations down to a 720, so they didn't find that their phone was overloading with all of that. Internet speed test. This is a very simple thing that you can do by going to Google and just typing in internet speed test. This is going to give you an opportunity in the setting and the situation you're in at that point, where and how much of your upload speed can you do. Upload speed is more important than your download speed when you're producing a virtual event, because you're uploading all of your information to everybody else. You're not downloading any information. So it's important to do that. So all you got to do is the ideal upload speeds, obviously, you want to range from 3 to 7 megabytes per second. 3, if you're pumping in 3 on your internet connection, you cannot be doing any sort of 1080p stream. If you're in the 7 and above, you can with the most confidence go in there with the 1080p stream, and even at a 60 frame per second rate. So frames per second is another thing that we need to be mindful of. You're watching this stream right now on a 60 frame per second unit. That's how it's going to give you the most fluid. And with your Micro Studio kit, the starter kit is going to give you a 1080p 60 frames per second webcam. This is extremely important because so many brands market 1080p and 4K, and then when you actually go into it, it's only 4K at 30 frames per second, which is not good. I would much rather take a 60 frames per second at a lower pixelation, say a 1080p at 60 frames per second, than having a 4K at 30 frames per second. Okay? Frames per second gives you that fluidity, that smoothness that it's able to pick up, because it's picking up double the amount of pixelation or pictures per second than the 30 frames per second. So going into that, conducting your download speed 3.2, 7.4, extremely important. Please be mindful of that and do that every single time. So of course, we'll do another quick recap. Let's head on over to the coach's corner quickly here. Head on over here. So of course, when you're confirming your internet connection at all purposes of time, if you're able to, please have it hardwired. Hardwired connection. If you can't have it hardwired, please ensure that your laptop is as close to the modem or the router as possible. Please do not have any separation of floors if you're able to. And of course, you're going to limit your devices. Okay, so if your iPad's just sitting there and it's consuming wireless, but you don't need it at that point, turn the wireless off on your iPad, for example, okay? On your smartphones and everything like that too. And then every single time when you're traveling or you're about to go in there, you can just do your speed test. This is a simple Google search. Then you search speed test, and it gives you an output of 3 to 7. 7 is going to give you that 1080p that you can be comfortable with. If you're closer to a 3, maybe bump that down to 720. And I want you to understand 720 pixelations is not it's not bad. You're still going to have an okay picture and it's going to look good. However, when you're up in GB3 Studios, when you're investing in Micro Studio is not a budget bag. You have a starter kit, and the starter kit is going to give you the minimum requirements that I feel, based on the technology over the last 2 years, that's going to give you the longevity that you need without having to upgrade in 2 or 3 years. So it's an investment, it's not a purchase, okay? Please keep mindful of that. When you get your Micro Studio, you will be doing 1080p meetings. I assure you with that, depending on your internet connection, but your equipment is going to be capable to do that, right? Boom. Internet connection, hardwired, limit your devices, get that speed test going in. And at that point, you know what we can do. Let's go do it. We already got to hit it with it. And of course, confirming it, get another one, pow, pow. Confirm your internet connection. Ensure you do this on your virtual event checklist, of course. I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you're having a lot of fun. This is great being your instructor, and I take great pride in being able to teach you and educate you on becoming virtually professional. And we're getting there. We got the internet connection. Let's head back downstairs. Let's go over the actual practicality of the internet connection and what you need to do when you're using your micro studio, when going into your virtual events, to be mindful of. And then, of course, we'll head back up here and we'll talk more about the virtual event checklist. So we'll see you soon. Have some fun and enjoy yourself. We'll talk to you soon.